Yep, sounds good.
Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? As you see, it's not only me. We've got Angelo here as well. Hi, Angelo. How are you doing?
Hello. Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Sorry, we were just like in industry discussions like before the podcast. I feel like we were running a podcast before the portfolio reviews.
That's gonna be for another time.
Yeah. Hey, we got Sarah in the chat. We got Mikval, Snowbat, Nijan, Bodhi, Goose, and Antonio. Glad to see you all here. Lovely to have you all. So, oh, I watched the pod. Oh no, I said the wrong word again. I made the mistake of bringing up a podcast. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna ignore that. You know, I'm just gonna pretend that I'm not gonna read the comments for a little bit. So, Angelo, how do we
Same.
get here? Like,
Ooh.
how did you get in this seat next to me?
I don't know. You messaged me one day randomly, you know. No. So basically, I had an idea a couple weeks ago, a month ago. I wanted to start doing a series of lighting focused portfolio reviews, and I mean, I've been on Beyond Extend for quite some time, and I know you've been doing some great work, and I just want to help as many people as I could, and collaboration was imminent because you have an amazing platform, and what a better way to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, especially on the presentation side, right? Because I mean, that's also why I reached out to you, because I'm good when it comes to like the actual like design stuff, right? Like I have like a little bit of a design background, and I kind of know what I'm doing with my thumbnails here and there, but like to get into like the nitty-gritty of the lighting setups and like really help lift people up, it's always really interesting to have you on as well. So I mean, I'm excited to work together. And then we've been kind of going back and forth a little bit of like the future potential of what it might be, but we're gonna keep it like this for now, and then we'll see where we're gonna go into the future.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited to see the portfolios.
Yes. Oh, Hudson 16 is coming in and it's saying that I heard that you had COVID. No. Is there a rumor going around that I'm having COVID? No, I was out for a week in I was in Belgium. But yeah, it was nice, lovely. I came back sick though, so technically that's probably where it comes from. Yeah, no, but we're here to talk about portfolios, so I'm gonna switch it up, and then we're just gonna dive straight into it. So let's have a look. Your insights will be enlightening. Oh yes.
I made that joke way too many times.
I was about to say, you should be like loving those jokes.
No, it's great. Yeah, the stream's gonna be lit.
Oh fuck! What did I do to myself? Like I didn't anticipate this. Dang it! Oh
No,
not
Tim,
the dad jokes.
I'm just here for the exposure.
Oh my god! This is not what I was expecting. Okay, so first portfolio here we've got Yusuf Algos. Usually what I'll try to do is we're gonna start out with like a little bit of an overall impression of the portfolio, and then we're kind of gonna break it down into like stages. So overall impression first, and then we're gonna look at like how the title compares to like what people have on their portfolio, and then we're just gonna dive into like the thumbnails and more of the work. So yeah, let's start off. I think very interesting like first impression over here. There's a lot of variation in the work already, like from hard surfacey stuff like realistic to more like stylized stuff as well. So very interesting range of styles, and Yeah, assets as well. What do you think as a first impression?
Yeah, the first thing I was looking for was like the title of Yusuf. He says 3D game artist, so I would expect a more generalist portfolio, and yeah, with by by a first glance, I can see lots of things. I can see some trim sheets, I can see environments, I can see props, and yeah, I can see some like props from finished like a shipped project potentially, because I see a logo at the very bottom, like a Squad Vietnam. So yeah, gonna be interesting to have a look.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to dive into then, right? Like the 3D game artist. I feel, in my opinion, that's always like a bit too generalized. I feel like it's like a little bit all over the place. Like you're saying, it kind of matches with the work, but I don't think, in my opinion, that that's like a good thing to kind of build a portfolio for. Um, just in case, just my opinion on that has always been that you should just like focus up, like pick something that you're like really good at, and then once you're in, you can like broaden your spectrum and your scope again, because you have like multiple styles here working for you, Yusuf. So you're already doing stylized. There's a little bit of like semi-realistic. I know that those lines like get really blurry real quick, but hang in there with me, right? So we got like the Borderlands style, we got like semi-realistic, some stylized, and then like some stylized game art stuff. I don't necessarily mind the different styles, but we're switching from environments to props to a trim sheet to like an asset. It feels a little bit all over the place, and it comes across as you're not focused on something. That's the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah, kind of like still figuring out where you want to specialize. I wouldn't say necessarily that that's bad, but it really depends on like what they're targeting. For example, if they're targeting like indie studios or like freelance work, maybe like more prop related work, that could be potentially fine. But yeah, like I wouldn't have ideally both environments, both like also textures, or like for example just a single trim sheet. And also, yeah, different art styles that are kind of conflicting with each other, as you said. Like, I can see realistic stuff, which is fine. But I also see like Borderlands style work, and then the latest team challenge environment that I see is like stylized.
Yep.
So yeah, kind of goes back and forth. For me, it depends, because I also have a mixture of both things in my portfolio, and I've used like the fact that I had photorealistic like work experience on in my advantage when interviewing. But I would be very clear on what I'm targeting ideally, both in terms of like the scale of the studio. So if you're going for a like AAA studio or like AA, I would specialize a bit more. So like let's say I want to do props, I want to do hard surface, I want to do textures or like materials, or I want to be an environment artist. Or alternatively, if you're going more on the indie route, a more complete but more generalist portfolio could help a bit better.
Yep, that's fair enough. I think let's have a look at the thumbnails next then, right? If we have to look at like the screen right here, right? I kind of like some of these, right? So I'm gonna pick some that I do like. Kind of like this one. This one is pretty good. This one has me intrigued as well, right? Like this one, I don't know. Like it's kind of mixed. This one looks interesting. This one, I'm not sure about actually. What do you think, Angelo? Like the little tree, because I'm kind of mixed on it.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. It probably includes some different lighting scenarios. But I don't think the thumbnail is working a lot here. So like, I would try different. Maybe use just one of the lighting scenarios like get the most appealing one or the most punchy one, or yeah, just have like a smoother transition between those two, or like showcase it somehow in a different way.
Yep.
Because yeah, it's looking a bit weird in my opinion, at least.
Yep. It's good. And then I think the trim sheet one, I'm also not a big fan of. It's pretty boring, right? I know that it's just a trim sheet, but you can present a trim sheet in like an environment or do something more with it, right? Rather than just presenting a trim sheet on like a flat plane. I think you can always push it further.
Yeah, get some reflections, like just an invisible light somewhere, and like so of the roughness as well. Get a more dramatic angle, or get some shadows from like another object, perhaps.
Yep. This one is weird, like the team challenge, because I know the scale of the project. I want to say that the thumbnail could be improved, but I know the scope and the scale of the project, and in that context, I don't think there's a better opportunity for a thumbnail. So, because I have the context, I'm kind of mixed on this one. And then what about this lamp over here, Angelo? I feel I'm not a fan of like dark, like black backgrounds in general, because I feel like it just, I don't know, it just kills any vibes that you're trying to set, right? What do you think?
It's interesting. I don't necessarily mind it, but since like you have so many props in the portfolio, I would just make an effort and make everything consistent. Like I would slightly prefer a bit more the dark gray color that you have for the squad props at the bottom. So like I would use that color and like apply the same color to like the rest of the props, like the axe, the grenade, and the lamp. Like the thumbnail of the lamp is good. I would still like try a more interesting angle, like zoom in a bit more, because you have like a lot of negative space at the top that's not really doing anything for your thumbnail. So yeah.
For now, I think we can definitely improve on this one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Cool. I think at this point, let's dive into one of these. I want to start out with the trim sheet because we had like a really quick sneak peek before, so I just want to start out with a trim sheet because I feel like there's a lot that we can improve here. There's a lot that can be said because it's only like a simple project, right? So it's a sci-fi inspired trim sheet, and it's made in Substance Designer, and it's customizable to the teeth, which is really interesting that you say that. But when you don't show it, then there's nothing backing that up. You can say that it's customizable to the teeth, but if you then don't have like a GIF or like multiple images or something showing like the customization of it, like people are not going to believe it because we only see like one flat texture. So it would be way better if you just like show like a GIF or something like that, right? Like a GIF like swapping through like all the different variations, or maybe even have like multiple iterations of the image where you do like diagonal cutouts or whatever you want to do, and then showcase like how you can change it yourself, or a little video, right?
Oh yeah, not sure if like the Substance player is still functioning as a software. Like as a Substance at some point had a nice basically Substance application that you could just throw in your Substance like the exported Substance archive file, and then you could just play around with the like exposed parameters that you had. That's one way that you could potentially showcase it. Alternatively, you could use the Substance plugin for like any 3D software or like Unreal even, and like you could have those exposed parameters and like showcase them and like make a nice sequencer video basically and export it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, even a GIF would work, or like some static images showing different variations of that material. Because yeah, if you went through all the trouble to make it customizable, yeah, it's very important that you saw it.
Yeah, it comes down to me for like show don't tell, right? Especially because if you really think about it, like what we are as environment artists, we're visual storytellers. And if you then quote unquote like fail to do that on like a simple project, then it's kind of like if you don't do that for like a simple project, then I don't know if you want to do that on bigger stuff, right? Um, Sometimes it's really thinking outside of the box and being like, okay, I have this really simple trim sheet. What do I do with it? Right? And sometimes it's like a real opportunity to also showcase like how creative you can be with something that other people showcase probably in the same way as you would do it too, right? So just think outside the box, like try something creative, try something unique, and see if it works. And then I think we have like the graph under here as well. I am not a big fan of these graphs. I've had talks with technical artists about this, and they do want to see graphs, which is really interesting. But let's actually see. So I wanna test out something. Oh,
I'm guilty of doing like those graphs at some point, but
yeah.
I was going
So
out of my way to like organize them, make them look clean. I see so many floating lines around, so I don't think this is helping the cause.
well, also like if you do present it, I can kind of I will look through my fingers if I can still read like some of the notes or I know what you're doing, right?
Yeah,
But
I'll try to
now
zoom in.
exactly. Like if we're zooming in, like I have no idea what is happening here, right? So this is just like it doesn't add any value. It just shows that you've made spaghetti, but like yeah, I don't know.
Like literally weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's actually some good comments in the chat as well. So Hudson16 said it would be better if you could showcase on using that trim sheet. Yeah, so that's also a great point, right? Like something that I'm a big fan of, especially with tileable textures as well, is whenever people showcase it in an actual environment or like in like a presentation somehow, rather than just having it on like a flat plane, like do something with it. Right? It could be like, oh, I made like a nice wall. Okay, cool. Like add a floor to it from Megascans, like add like another wall and then or like a ceiling and you have like a nice presentation all of a sudden, right? Like don't make it a flat wall, but maybe make it a curved one. Depends on what kind of texture we're making. But yeah, there's options, right? You can make it look interesting.
Yeah, no, it could be something very small, like literally one small corridor diorama. You don't even have to make a whole environment out of it.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
it
and
will
Mr.
give
J.
you. Oh,
Yeah, Mr. J saying the same thing. Like, I would rather showcase using the trim sheet in different assets since that's like the main purpose of a trim sheet. Yeah, I totally agree. Awesome. Okay, spend enough time talking about the trim sheet. Which one do you want to have a look at?
kind of curious about the environment that has the multiple lighting scenarios.
Oh, this one, the one with the trim.
Yeah, if that's it. Yes.
Let's have a look. So this is built during a course during CGMA with Anthony Boccaro. Challenged myself to make a full environment. Everything was made from scratch. That's awesome. Put some tileables. We got the main tree here. And then some different sculpts. And we got this. Like the thing that I like here is that we're seeing breakdowns, right? Like
Yes.
you're trying to be transparent with how you approach your work. Now, those breakdowns can definitely be improved by not only showing like the clay renders, but also showcasing like, okay, what's the poly count, right? Like let's say this is 10K and this is using 2K textures or something like that, right? And then have the textures like displayed next to it so that we can actually see how you approached it. And then you could have like the clay render and like the actual textured version so that we can compare like in one shot like how you approached like an asset like this with like the full breakdowns. This is the nerdy stuff that people love to talk about, right? And the better your approach is, like the more points you're gonna score on an eventual interview as well.
Yeah, you can definitely use all that information, and you can explain your thought process, because usually when you're when during an interview you're going through your portfolio, it's gonna be like very helpful to have all that information right baked in the image, because I assure you won't be able to remember what the poll count of that tree was 2 months down the line.
Yep, for sure.
And for example, if you scroll the way down team at some point, we can see, like, I see some wireframe shots for some foliage, and that's great. It makes sense that the tree wouldn't have that, but for example, you could have some extra wireframe shots for the rocks that you have right above.
Yep. Yep.
Because, yeah, especially with those rocks, I can see that some of them have like very variable polygon density. Some of them look kind of high poly, and then others are looking like mid poly, or like especially the central one. Since it's so small, it could even be a blockout, like a rock, because I don't see the same amount of detail. So that's kind of throwing me off here.
It has a different style as well, right? Like slightly different. Let's see. Where's it used?
I think it's used
Oh, is it
once
this one?
on the left. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't say it fits in compared to the rest.
yeah, I don't mind it. It's probably also used here, right, to create like these stairs as well. But yeah, the rest of the rocks is like nice, and it has those wind erosion, right, where they're like nicely soft and carved out, and then you have like this hexagonal like look to it, which is usually due to like a completely different type of erosion, right? I know we're getting into like the weeds of things, but basically
Yeah,
they just
it's
have like a different look. That's what it comes down to. Like try to make the look and like the feel of them like consistent. If all of them are like nice and soft, it's gonna look weird if you have like one that's like really square and like sharp all of a sudden. But yeah, there's also one thing that I wanted to say about the wireframes over here, since you brought it up as well. I like how optimized these are, right? With grass and like any small bits of vegetation, you have to be so careful, because especially in larger open worlds, you're gonna scatter like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of these like small guys, and they can ramp up like really quickly. That brings us to the cacti. Like, this guy is heavy, like in poly count. Imagine if we then apply like the same sort of scattering to the cactus. We're gonna run into issues like real quick.
yeah, it's scary. And same with the smaller succulent
Yep.
cactus, I guess. Yeah. Like, it's good
Yep.
that it has like nice definition, and like I love foliage to be like have enough geometry so it doesn't look blocky. But yeah, I would definitely take a couple of steps back in terms of how tessellated that is.
Yep. Yeah, and this also brings us back to like the breakdowns too. Like, this is where I would love to see like the poly count. I mean, we can see it visually, and I know that these two are, well, we both know that these two are like way too high. But yeah, it would still be nice to see like how high they actually are. And again, like this is, I'll do like a little paint over here, right? Like if you have like your collection of assets, so your collection of assets to the left, and then we do like texture breakdown for all of them. So we have like all the textures, and then your poly count, and the texture sizes as well, right? You probably want to flip those two, but something that in like one sheet you have like all the information that we can look at, and I can then be like, okay, cool. So these are all like packed onto one texture, which is awesome. Or if not, then we have like a different conversation, right? And then the poly counts and all that stuff, just have it all nice on one sheet. You could even turn those into like little animated GIFs where like it swaps between the unlit versions and like the textured versions. It depends on how fancy you want to get. Like just a single sheet as a static image is more than enough for this kind of stuff. And you can then kind of turn that into like a template that you could use on your other assets as well, like the rocks and I don't know what else do we have
The
here?
tree?
Like the tree. Exactly. The textures as well. You could kind of use that for the same thing. Yeah. And then Mr. J in the chat is saying the output is still amazing though. Good work. For sure. Yeah. The output is still great. I love how you approach like the textures. It's really interesting. I know I always go back to like the critical part, right? But like the tree can definitely be improved, but trees are freaking hard to make look good. Like I know that I struggle with making like good looking trees like for the longest time. It has a cool shape, but it doesn't feel like the branches like have like a natural looking shape. That's a good question, Hudson. Sorry, Angelo. I'm just gonna check if it's made in SpeedTree. Oh, it is. Okay.
Let's see. Nice. Again, if it's made with SpeedTree, you could probably have some wind in there, like with like pivot painter. I don't remember exactly how it's made, but it should automatically export that information for you to use in Unreal. So
yeah,
like it would be cool to showcase that with a small video, like a small fly through of the environment.
Especially again, if you're doing a day and night cycle, right? Maybe not a cycle. Maybe you're just switching between static scenarios. You could kind of fake a transition like in post, right? Where you have like a gradient switching between the two. None of that stuff is like really hard to set up. Like there's tons of tutorials about that, but it can really like elevate the presentation of your portfolio to like the next level because again, show don't tell, right? You're showcasing that you can do like multiple scenarios, like multiple lighting scenarios of the same thing, which is really interesting. Yeah, no. Cool. Hey, Sia's in the chat. I see ya.
Oh no.
Run. Let's see. So I probably want to pick like two more quick ones, and then what we might do is we can move on to the next one. So I'm gonna let you pick one first.
Oh.
Which one are we looking at?
Should we go to the like diorama right next to the canyon?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stylized one, so it's like have a source thought for stylized, and it's very interesting because it gives me like a comic look. Okay, so a very important thing I just immediately noticed is it's made in Blender. So it's probably done in an offline rendered.
It's rendered in Marmoset.
Workflow. Oh wait.
Yeah, it has like the little logo.
Oh, Marmoset. Yeah. Right. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I was checking the software used. Yeah,
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, again, like I love how close it is to the actual reference you got at the very bottom.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I think it's like a really good job. But I don't know. I need your opinion on this. Is it getting bonus points or minus points if it is made in Marmoset? It's still a real-time scenario, but in an environment setting, and then like in a game environment setting, I'm kind of conflicted. I might like prefer it if it was made like in Unity or Unreal. Like you could get the same result in Unity if you want to go like to that toon shaded stylized look fairly easily, but
yeah,
like the fact that
I think it's no difference in points to me, right? Because you're still doing like the integration, you're still setting up the materials, and you still have to do like all the annoying parts
Yeah.
compared to like a different engine. So you're just doing like a different kind of setup compared to Unity or Unreal. Obviously, like we're working in games, so a game engine would be nice, but I also don't think that it's like costing anyone any points, right? If we were to look at like a complete portfolio and all the work is only in Marmoset and you're making like bigger environments, let's say, right, as an example, then I would be like, okay, why not do it in Unreal instead or like Unity instead, right? But yeah, once you showcase that you have done like one project in like a game engine, then it showcases that you can like do the implementation and like the setup. At least to me.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
Yeah, that's interesting though. Because Yusuf even commented himself that he said that please keep in mind that this is a diorama and should not represent the environment art workflow, but it should tell you about the artistic direction. That's an interesting
Oh,
one. Because if you're talking about artistic direction, this is not something that you build, but you just build it from a reference. So I'm very conflicted on that. Like it shows that you can follow an artistic direction, but that you can't set it yourself, right? So I know I'm being very specific there, but if you wanted to showcase, for example, that you can do your own artistic style, then you have to work off something like yourself, right? Or take the reference and just turn it into like, okay, I'm gonna put my style spin on this. But this is more or less just following like the reference, right?
yeah. Or even I would like follow the art style exactly like as my reference, but I would make my own thing. So like I would
Yep.
make a different scene. But maybe it would be an exterior, maybe it would be like a different room of that mansion. But yeah, I would make different props, still following the same shape language and like color palette, perhaps, and the same lighting rules that we see here on that reference. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
still very
and
cool that you can follow the concept, yeah, so closely. So that's still a great thing to showcase.
exactly. I was gonna say the exact same thing, right? Like this doesn't take away from you actually being able to execute and follow on a concept. But it's just I want to make sure that you're not confusing it with like being able to set your own artistic direction. Um So let's see, because Mr. J is asking, is this all base color only or like no normal maps? And from what I can tell,
Uh,
it's
there is a
pure
real
albedo,
time.
right?
Yes, there is a real time viewer if you wanna go over that. Yes, very fun. It's been quite some time since I've seen one of these, and it
I
is base color.
I'm gonna be honest about this. Like I generally don't check these out unless it's something like this, right? Where I'm like, oh, I kind of want to see how this is built. Yeah, this is cool, and
Yeah.
all the lighting is painted in as well. Really cool. I like that. Let's see. Yeah, no normals. It's awesome. I love stuff like this, right? Always cool to see. Well, it's interesting that it doesn't represent the environment art workflow. So I mean, that probably means that the texture maps are not to size, and that there's just like there's probably a bunch of stuff left over in the UV map and all that kind of stuff. But I would for that purpose, to avoid confusion, I would probably put it into like a different folder where you put like maybe some of your other stuff and you just call it like old work or other work or something like that that is not directly relevant to the stuff that you're trying to achieve right now. That would my approach be. What do you think about that, Angelo?
Oh yeah, totally. yeah, since we have so many like different things, like we have the trim seat, as we said, we have environments, we have props. I would make an effort to organize all of them and like basically have the main thing that you wanna work at be presented in these the splash page of your portfolio. So like make folders, and I'm not saying necessarily unpublish everything and like keep that one thing, because I suppose you're trying to be a generalist, so you need to be able to showcase that you can do different things. But yeah, like if you wanna have a specialty, like just a slight more focus on environments, let's say, I would move in all those environments at the top of the page, and like have all the props on another like corner of the portfolio, and then anything in between, for example the trim sheet, or if you had any other materials, I would group them kind of together.
Yep, that would make sense. Yeah, I'm thinking that's interesting, right? Because with this one, I'm kind of thinking that I want to move like all the squad stuff on the top row. Because not necessarily because like it's the best presented thumbnail wise or something like that, but it showcases that you have professional working experience, which is usually like a really good thing to have like on the top row, just because it makes that initial impact of like, oh, he actually has worked in the industry already, instead of at this point like having to scroll down and then potentially seeing this, right? So I'm not 100% convinced, but I would honestly consider like moving this stuff up where it becomes at least visible in like the first 2 rows or something like that. And maybe by cutting some of the other work, or like moving it to the older folder, this is going to happen naturally. But that's definitely what I would try to push for, like seeing more of the professional work at like an instant glance, because that does a lot of convincing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, since some of them are like fairly small props, I might consider like adding them like in one post. What do you think about that, Tim? Because I mean, the motorcycle is cool by itself, but the next one is just an ammo bag, for example. So I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, you can see like there's bunch of reference and like so much work has gone into that bicycle, but then the other props are like magnitudes simpler.
Yep. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It obviously becomes a question of like, do you still have access to the files and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you have, I would definitely have a look at it for sure. Maybe keep like the motorcycle separate and then just have like the other props just in like a little collage together. Also, this is something that pains me. This sort of stuff. Just take it into Photoshop, please. Oh, I can't stand this. The thought behind it is good, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, you're showcasing like all the individual textures, which is exactly what I want to see. But don't do it in PureRef and then just add like a couple little things and then cut it out.
Screenshot, yeah.
Yeah, like take a little bit of care in the presentation. Like really think about it. And maybe your first one is not going to be great. Mine weren't either, right? But at least it gets the ball rolling of like, hey, I need to take myself professionally. And it gets you into like a drive of like, and it's usually small stuff, right? Like this screenshot goes from like full width, and then we scroll down, and then it goes back to like square. And then this one is slightly bigger. Like all this stuff, like just it's about the small things again, and I feel like I'm picking on like small things, but honestly, like the small things like really make it. I would definitely say like make everything the same size, make it consistent, like put them on the same template, right? Like just have a template where you have like a certain font that you use, like a certain organization, and then add it all to the same thing. Because the content, again, content that you're showing here is great. I love it. It's just not presented well at this point.
Yeah, in the best way. And another like thing to point out is, for example, you have the marmoset scene at the top, and then you have like a render of that. But if you see them side by side, they're not really matching in terms of lighting, which is very weird. Usually, the real time scene looks flatter and like simpler, but in this scenario, it's like the opposite. Like I would love on like the final render to see, for example, a shadow catcher, so you have like the asset looks a bit more grounded. For some reason, the lighting is completely different between those two, so I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, like I don't see any, like just a basic 3-point lighting setup. It seems like the model is evenly lit from all angles, which makes me assume that you just use like the HDRI, perhaps Painter's viewport screenshot, and not even bother rendering that. So yeah. Overall, yeah, I think the presentation could use some work here, as Tim said.
Yep, 100%. You can really take this to the next level by taking like 5 minutes, slapping like a Megascan ground underneath it, like just a road surface. They probably have that, right? And adding like a couple of props next to it, maybe the interior of a shop. Like, I don't know, like something that just in the moment you're like, oh, I could do this, and you just see what's available in Megascans and just add it next to it, and then present it that way, right? Yeah, there's a lot of really quick wins that people can do when it comes to this. Like just to take it to like the next level. Yeah. Overall, again, like I really like the model, right? Like the texturing on it looks really nice. Like the approach on it. I know this is for a game, so you're working with like really strict limitations. Yeah, it still came out like really nice, you know?
Yeah, it would be nice to have some extra context on, like, for example, what the game was about, what kind of limitations you had. Like, is that for a mobile game? Is that for like a old gen console? Yeah.
I think Squad Vietnam is probably like a first-person game. I'm assuming, but
Most likely, yeah.
most likely. Yeah, no. Cool stuff. I think let's then do like a little recap, right? So I'm gonna make like a couple of notes on the screen. I think number one for me was definitely show, don't tell, right? With that I mean, again, like don't explain something to us, but like visually show it. Like we should be able to like see stuff, and then if we still miss information, we can read up upon it. But like you should have like 90% of everything through like the visuals. What's your number two, Angelo? What do you say?
Like have some more focus on what you want to showcase. Yeah, I don't know how to sort that up. Because even as a 3D game artist, it's kind of tricky to showcase. Yeah, like what you're showing right now is a bit of everything. So I would still make an effort to like just specialize slightly on something. That could be on the art style side of things. That could be on the like actual work of nature of things. So like, are you focusing more on environments? Are you focusing just on props? Again, yeah, I don't know. I don't have the overall context to suggest something more specific, but you can tell us if you're in the chat. So
yeah, I don't.
And again,
think
yeah,
they are, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like I fully agree. Like they can kind of take the feedback to heart and then see what they want to do with it, right? Because usually when you tell people like, hey, you need to focus up, like people generally have an idea what they want to do. So I'm sure they know.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's totally understandable to be in that position. Like I've been I've been doing that for the first 5 years of my like 3D journey. Started doing characters, did some animation, and then like slowly figured out what I enjoyed doing more.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is very interesting, right? Because I've always had like a very specialized approach, but this is also because what you said before as well, Angelo. I've always been focused on AAA and like, well, mostly AAA and then potentially AA, right? Um, but if you wanna, and this is sort of coming to like a question as well, Hudson,
Yeah.
because he's asking, or like they're asking, so a generalist portfolio is discouraged. I don't think it's discouraged, but if you want to get into like a AAA or a AA industry, you have to specialize. If you want to get into like an indie game or like work on
Mobile
like an indie game
games
somewhere, potentially
sometimes as well.
mobile, yeah. Um, I would definitely say indie and potentially mobile then. You could have like a more generalist portfolio, but with a generalist portfolio, you also have to be careful that you don't just become like a generalist that can do everything in like mediocrity, right? You still, as a generalist, you still have to have stuff where you're good at, and then have like a bunch of other skills that can like strengthen your core skills too.
Yeah.
So that's
And also
really important there.
and also be like able to showcase that and do that successfully in the interview. So it's it can get tricky quite fast.
Yeah, because once I got into the industry, right, I kind of specialized into like environment art, especially focusing on like the bigger environments. Once I got in, I started like adding new skills onto my skill set that were like a little bit more distant, like a lot of tech stuff, like a lot of organic stuff, like like stuff that wasn't necessarily like relevant to me getting a job. But once you get a job, you usually have the time and a little bit more headspace to do that. It's going to strengthen your position in the future too. So, Mr. J is asking, I see. How about I group my portfolio instead? Although a recruiter said, oh no, although like a recruiters would be too lazy to look.
You can still have a featured folder, right? So like it shows up some like
If you pay, for our session.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Because that was actually a trick that I did. So I made the division between professional and personal work, and you would land on my portfolio, but it would only show personal work. So that was kind of a tactic that I assumed at a certain point. But you can group your portfolio, but it gets really tricky to say like a statement like, oh, you shouldn't or you should, right? Because it depends on the amount of stuff that there is. Some portfolios, if everything is high quality, you probably, and there is like a lot of diversity, you probably want to start separating them into folders, right? But we're generally not talking about like juniors at that point anymore.
Yeah, I just checked mine because I didn't remember how I had set up mine. So like by default, I have it set to for everything to be visible, but also have like the first folder would be professional work. So I would put that those Vietnam props like in a separate folder, and that would be the first thing visible to recruiters. So maybe
Yep.
that would help showcase that you already have some experience.
Yep. Awesome. Jumping back to Yusuf's portfolio then, number 3. And I think then we can go on to like the next portfolio. So number 3 for me would be optimizing your breakdowns. So like showcase your breakdowns better. Because the content there was good, right? Like we discussed, like the content was all there, just the presentation was not up to the point to showcase your assets or props properly. So showcase your breakdowns better. That would be like the final point from us. Unless you want to add something to that list, Angelo.
No, I would go like a bit over the lighting of those, like a couple of props and environments that we discussed already. But I think it's part of the show don't tell. So like, yeah, don't think I would
Yeah,
have it as a separate point.
I think you kind of said some stuff on the bike specifically, right? Like just doing like a 3-point lighting setup is gonna elevate it to like the next level already, rather than just using like an HDRI. Yeah, can definitely
And
make some wins there.
like I went through the lamp project real quick, and like I saw that you already applied those things. So, and that's a much newer project compared to the bike one. So I can already see the progress, which is great. So if you still have access to those files, maybe it would be worth to like go back to those files and also like, do like a treatment pass and like make them more presentable and basically showcase your work in a more beautiful way as you already learned how to do it.
Yep, that's true. Cool. Thank you so much, Yusuf, for sharing your portfolio. I hope this helped. And if you have any more questions, always feel free to reach out to myself. Let's see. Okay. Let's move on over to the next one. Got Daryl from Malaysia. Lovely Malaysia. Never been, but it sounds lovely. Let's see. I'm Daryl Yap. I have experience with Blender, Unreal Engine, and Unity. I enjoy creating 3D models and photorealistic environments. Awesome. So, first impression, no banner, which is still a weird concept to me. It's fine, right? It's just weird that I was trying to scroll up, but there was no banner.
Honestly, I don't really like the new ArtStation update. I think I also removed my banner, so I'm totally fine with that.
It makes everything feel cramped, right? Like it feels like there's no more space anymore.
Yeah. Although like I like the sidebar with like all the information, but that also auto hides by itself at some point, which also is weird. But what can you do?
Yeah, we're probably gonna see like a couple more iterations, like if we keep doing this. So
I give them a month.
yeah. Okay. First that I see here, game artist. I think honestly, at this point, from just looking at the images, I think you can call yourself like an environment artist. I think you have like a real interest in making environments. So I would honestly get rid of the game artist and just change that to like environment artist instead. And just fully say like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. And then look at my work because that's exactly what I'm aligning myself with. It makes it real easy for someone, like let's say a recruiter is looking for environment artists. I think it also has to do with like the search terms on ArtStation as well. If you put yourself as an environment artist, you're probably going to show up like higher in the searches and all that kind of stuff too. So it can only help your search.
And Daryl is already mentioning that they enjoy creating like photorealistic environments. So just call yourself environment artist and own it.
Awesome. Wait, where are we seeing this?
On the description on the side.
Oh, I thought you were talking about chat. Awesome. Okay, so let's just dive into like one of the pieces. I'm gonna pick one. I kind of like the Italian inspired one. Let's see. Okay, we got multiple lighting setups. Cool.
I like this.
Oh, a little progress GIF. Always nice and tasty. It's interesting because I feel like the block out or like the structure of the scene was built really quickly, and then it was just like, oh, just a couple of iterations of decals, right? But obviously we're not seeing like the weeks of work that probably went into it.
Yeah, I know the pain. Sometimes you like finish up with the day and then you forget to take a screenshot, and then a week goes by, and then you just don't have anything in between to show for.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, boom, I got a building here.
Exactly. See, so we got like a little model overview. High poly model of a leaf, then baked onto a low poly mesh in substance. Type map was used for the stems. Cool. Next time, little tip, just do this flat and then do like the low poly adjustments where you have like the curve in the leaves. Just do that afterwards. Makes it so much easier. See, a lot of interesting like details here, right? Like a lot of descriptive stuff happening here. So love to see that. Base texture. There's metallic in this texture. Like
Yeah, it looks interesting.
That's yeah, that's not right. Because otherwise the highlights wouldn't have like a color, right? They would just be white.
Not necessarily, because I can also see some weird like Fresnel reflections on the next texture, which is supposedly a rough wood material. Like if it's a rough wood, it should be almost fully rough, right? I wouldn't expect to have so many specular highlights in here.
Yeah. Okay. So, but this is basically like a good indication that like currently from what we've seen, my opinion is that the textures could definitely be worked on, right? In like, I don't know, a separate project where you take like the textures and like really lift them up as like a focus point. That was also like my first impression as we were looking at like the whole environment as well. Lots of really shiny stuff, like no real contrast between like some of the surfaces, right? Makes them feel like very uniform and a little bit flat. Where normally you'd want to see like closer to the edges where the dirt is gathering, you would have like a different sort of roughness compared to like the flat surfaces, right? So you get like a little bit more interest. So yeah. Overall, really cool though. Like, there's some good bones here. You know, I think you can definitely take this further by just focusing more on, yeah, the texturing. Like I was saying before, we don't want to go all crazy and talk about like the actual approach of the environments, right? This is more about like the portfolio itself. Yeah. Okay, so in those terms, I like the little detailed sections that you've done under it, right? And that you're showcasing like how you approach like your certain assets in the scene, which is really interesting. I would also just love to see like still breakdowns, right? Like show me like a plant with like the textures and like how many polygons and all that kind of stuff. Just be very visible with that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and maybe like those GIF progress shots are like very interesting. Maybe instead of having like a paragraph of text underneath every GIF, maybe it would be worth to have like those GIF frames be like much lower and also have like the description of every step inside that image. So that could also be like, yeah, make the information a bit more readable. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a really often occurring thing, right? Like the show don't tell aspect where yeah, you can do so much visually, right? Where you could have like instead of just having a gray background, like really think about like this single frame where we're looking at like a flower and how it's being built. Like treat it as like, no, this is gonna be like a presentation for something, right? Like how would you like present this in like the most interesting way? Because you could have like you could still have a GIF where it switches between like your wireframe and your normal one, or like your textured version, but then also have like the textures right next to it, and like the UV map, and you could, once you have like all those elements laid out, you can start playing around with like, okay, maybe I'll display this thing in a certain way, or like the UV in a certain way. You can start playing around with those things.
And it can also be contextual. For example, you could only mention the the poly count on the low poly wireframe image. You could have the high poly just by itself and like say that that's the high poly. You could when you're showcasing the UVs, you could also showcase the textures, just so it's more visible that if you wanna
Yep.
showcase how good of a UV job you can do, for example.
Yeah, 100%. And then do the same thing for the textures, right? Because what this also does is the conversation that me and Angelo just had, where we were like, there's metallic in this texture. If you show us, then we don't have that conversation, and we're just like, oh, there's definitely metallic in that texture. That shouldn't be there. Or if there isn't, then we're like, there's no metallic in there. That's weird. Where's that coming from? Instead,
Yeah.
right? You want to be able to be as transparent as you can be, because the reason why I keep hammering on that so much, because I really feel that the more questions you put in the way of the HR recruiter or like whoever's looking at your portfolio, the more questions they end up with, the less likely they will put you to the next round of interviews, because they're like, oh, there's so much stuff happening, there's so much uncertainty, like I'm not sure, so I'm probably gonna go for the candidates who are really transparent and they're really visible about this stuff. And also, I know that this is painful too, right? Because this is your work, and I'm asking you to be really vulnerable with your work as well, which is uncomfortable, especially in the beginning. But also, the more that you open yourself to those things and then put your portfolio out there, the more accurate we can be in our feedback and say like, oh, whenever you do, let's say the wall texture, whenever you put like metallic in your wall texture, that shouldn't be there because it's not a metallic surface, right? So we can be like pinpoint accurate whenever we give you feedback in that case. And that's going to help you tremendously. Cool. What are you thinking about the different lighting scenarios, Angelo?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely interesting and something I like to see. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like a must to have as an environment artist. So like I would first focus on all those other things that you said, and then go on with lighting. Not a huge fan of how like some of the base color values probably are, because it feels very punchy and contrasty. So like it gives you that gamey look instead of like being super photorealistic. One example would be the window frames and then the windows themselves. Then, for example, on the first render, I can see ambient occlusion being a bit too strong, especially around the different parts of the house on the left. I don't know if that's a pipe or.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like a rain pipe or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I don't see any ambient occlusion on the right side, beneath the tent, which looks a bit odd. And I assume since it was posted last month, I assume this is in UE5, so not sure what's up with that. So maybe like some surfaces actually have metallics, and maybe that's why we don't see some like proper light treatment or some light behavior.
Yeah, exactly, because it's like Lumen seems to be very sensitive to like good albedo and like good surfaces, right?
And the metallic plays such a big role. So like if you have any metallic in your like material, you basically don't get you get so much less indirect contribution. So that's another thing that you need to be careful of.
Interesting. Yeah, no, cool. Let's have a look at some other stuff. There were also some questions in the chat as well. But Mr. J is saying the GIF presentation is undeniably awesome. More interesting to look at. Yeah, for sure. I mean, okay, I'll speak about myself. Like, I'm a monkey, you know? I like moving images. So if someone
I
is
think
like
everyone
GIFs,
likes
like,
it.
oh,
Yeah.
cool, this is interesting, immediately. But let's see. So a couple of quick ones. So Levin is asking a quick question as a beginner, since I feel like a bit lost. Would you recommend focusing on the whole environment or just props? As a beginner, just props. Very simple. The smaller, the better. Focus on actually getting the shapes right and like the texturing to feel right, rather than doing bigger, because bigger doesn't solve everything. Like, I keep saying this on like every whenever we talk about this subject. Like, bigger gets solved by more people on the project. So that's not something that you should be doing by yourself. I know that I've been a very bad example of this in the past, but please ignore me. Yeah.
No,
Next question. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna go say that you can start with like few props, then scale up to a small diorama, and then like slowly work your way through bigger environments. Maybe you start off with interiors and then you go to do an exterior.
Yeah. And then the next question: being an environment artist where I model, sculpt, texture, and optimize, will be a specialist or a generalist? That's a good question. Usually, so that's more of a generalist type. In general, you're gonna be doing quite a few things, but it's very dependent on the studio, the stage of the project, what kind of project you're working on. I know it's very tricky to give an accurate answer, but if you want to be modeling, sculpting, texturing, and optimizing all at the same time, you're gonna be a generalist, because usually in the bigger productions, the people that texture are most of the time separate people.
Yeah, and you usually prop artists or like outsource artists, and the environment artists are usually just doing dressing mainly, or like worrying about the pipeline stuff, how materials react within the engine, automating the workflows, and like having the pipelines.
Exactly. All right. Thanks for the questions, though. I know that we're kind of going through them quick, but we've got a dense schedule today. So let's see. I picked the first one. Which one do you want to look at, Angelo?
Ooh, let's go with the cabin, like the latest one, because I really like how it looks from the thumbnail.
Hey, inspired by Far Cry 5. Okay, wait, sorry. Is this the same? Have we seen this sky already? Was that the same sky as in here? Like, am I just losing it? No, I'm losing it. Never mind.
No, it's slightly different. Could probably be like Ultra Dynamic Sky or something similar. So like the same master material, but just a variation of it.
Let's see. So, a piece made over the span of 2 weeks, heavily inspired by Far Cry 5. The cabin was made with modular pieces. Interesting, because the other project wasn't made with modular pieces. So, that's cool. Textures used for the cabin was 2 trim sheets that were made in Substance Designer. Trees in SpeedTree. Other foliage in Blender. Everything else was also modeled in Blender. Okay, cool.
Honestly, it's great to see such big progress in like such a short amount of time. Because I think the previous one that we were looking at was like a month ago, and this is just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's
not exactly sure. What's post last month.
Yeah.
So the actual distance between those two was actually 2 weeks, so that's good to see. Don't think anyone would like pay such close attention to it, but since we're here and we read that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I really like how everything feels more consistent with each other. Like I can see like a denser packed like assets and set dressing. Yeah, having lots of foliage helps a lot in that case. Like where before you had like an empty street almost. You had some chairs, some tables, and like a few props, but it felt a bit more empty compared to this one. So that's nicely done. I also really like the foliage. Like judging by the unlit version of it, I can see that the like green values are not all over the place. So I would still tweak the pine trees a bit more to get them closer to the rest of the foliage colors. But yeah, it feels much more consistent compared to the previous environment.
Yeah.
And same with the materials. I don't know. Maybe it's something with the setup, like the template you're using. Maybe it's the HDRI that you're using, but yeah, it feels those are right at the bottom. Like those still feel very glossy for no reason. Like most of those are like rock or like wood, and especially the tree texture is looking very bright and like washed out. So I would definitely revisit the template or the lighting presentation on those materials. So you're probably like your materials are probably fine by themselves, but yeah, you're not presenting them the best possible way. So
Yeah. It feels like there's some flip normal stuff going on as well. Like at the bottom of the tree one.
oh
I think the normals are flipped by the looks of
yeah,
it.
maybe they're rendering them in Blender, which is OpenGL, and Unreal is DirectX. So yeah, be careful of that.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta be very careful of like the normal map format. What it basically comes down to is flipping the green channel. Very simple, but you just have to be aware of it. Yeah. I would also say, like, just to really put like extra emphasis on it, like your roughness map from all the textures that you're going to be using is the most important texture because it basically dictates if something's going to look realistic or not. So yeah, spend probably most of your time on your roughness map because that's going to have like an impact on like everything you do. Textures used for the trees. Yeah. I mean, I think the base of the presentation, right, where we're presenting these trim sheets, is good. I'm still missing the breakdowns, right? I want to see like, okay, so we have this stuff here, but like I want to see breakdowns of like base color, roughness, metallic, and normal. I want to
Yeah,
see
definitely.
see what's happening.
And also, like, give me your thoughts on that. But I think I'm getting kind of bored of like having cylinders or like sphere balls to showcase the materials. I would prefer to see them, even if they're a trim sheet. In like a flat plane, maybe like a displaced, tessellated one with some more interesting lighting, just so. Yeah.
I think honestly, if you already have an environment where you're using the trim sheet, then use that environment to present the trim sheet. Like what it can usually be, this is what I'm kind of a fan of, but I struggle with finding it back. I'll need to look at it after the stream. There was this the remake of the Dark Souls, like the first Dark Souls games that was made by Blue Point Games, I think. Some of the artists on that project, they basically took a screenshot of the entire environment and then they had like material spheres like at the bottom, just like small, just to present that like, hey, look, these are the materials used in this environment. And it was a very cool like, hey, look, this is what we built using these materials.
Oh, yeah.
It
It's
was
a
like a
great idea.
very cool like contextual link to what you're building, right? So honestly, what you could do in this case, like cut out like the left cylinder and then have the surface like if this is like the corner of like the cabin, right? Just have that like be like cool, this is the material that's used on the corner of the cabin. right? Something where I can look at like contextually, like this material is used on this, and then have two of those images. Or I think this is like the bottom. I'm guessing. I'm not sure. Have a quick look.
I think that's
Yeah, it
the
looks.
chimney.
Yeah, the chimney and the bottom as well. So
Ah,
you
right.
could
Yeah.
like zoom in on those areas and then just do the same thing there, right? Like make it all contextual. And yeah, like sometimes if your environment doesn't work out, like what you could do is make like a small diorama with stuff you have lying around anyway. And then let's say you want to present a tree, right? You basically just build like a little secluded area where you can put like one asset and you put that tree in the middle of it. And then you can kind of use that as like a base template to then build everything around. Yeah. You just have to take a little bit more time when presenting these breakdowns because it can make or break your way into the industry.
I have another two big nitpicks if we have enough time.
Go for it.
I was watching. I was going through the time lapse progression GIF again. Definitely a big improvement again compared to the previous environment. So great work on that. I can see like the stage is a bit more separated. So like I can see you started with a block out of the building, then you did the texture pass, then you slowly did the landscape, foliage, and like then the extra addressing things. I feel like I'm missing the very last part where you do some color grading, some like camera lens adjustments, give it some depth of field, some vignette, some film grain, all those kind of things that would give it the extra like 20% or 10% to make it look even more amazing. Because like I don't think you played around a lot with lighting, for example. The sun angle has been constant since like you did the first pass right early in the project. And also some localized lighting, for example, that could have been a nice opportunity to get some like point lights or like spotlights on the shadowed part of the building to emulate some extra bounce lighting from the foliage. Since it's I can see that you have such a strong sunlight, perhaps. Still doesn't feel very warm in terms of color, but for the amount of clouds that you have in the sky, the shadows are very contrasty, basically, which is a bit. You don't really notice it in like initially in the beginning, but the more I look at it, the more it looks a bit stark.
Yep.
And one minor thing would be the clouds at the top center part of the image. I don't know if you probably used some volumetric clouds because I can see them moving around, but also they're the same. Like the main one, that noisy cloud in the middle is always there, which is a bit weird. I would probably like move around the clouds, to just.
Yep.
It feels like a tangent, like it's conflicting with the main point of interest in our scene. So I would try to move that around or get rid of it.
For sure. Like that's actually something that I wanted to talk about as well. It's just like the focal point and like how important it is. I wasn't going to talk about the clouds, but just like there's so much more you can do with the actual house itself. Like have the door slightly open, have like a light coming from the inside. I know
Definitely.
this is all like stereotypical stuff, right? It's very cliche, but it's cliche because it works, right? Like your stereotypical cabin in the woods where it's dark and like there's orange light coming outside of the windows, right? Very cliche thing, but that's because it works, right? Like people pay attention to it. And with your scene, you're currently dealing with a lot of the same values. So you have to be careful with how you present those values, right? And I think what Angelo was saying was that you have like a lot of contrast here. So what leads our eyes, like one of the things that leads our eyes to certain things is contrast between values. So that shape or that area is currently taking up a lot of our attention. and it's kind of conflicting with like this area over here where you probably want people to look. So I know in the end we're just talking about like stupid clouds, but like all this stuff matters.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, if we go to environmental storytelling, I would love to see a couple more like decals, some hero props, or like some extra lighting work that basically draws our eye to those specific areas that you mentioned.
For sure. For sure.
Like perhaps you could have some smoke coming out of the chimney, because yeah, right now it's not contributing anything apart from like the base shape of the house.
Yep.
Could have some lights. It doesn't have to be like super strong red lights that are like ominous or anything, but you could make it seem like someone lives in those in that cabin right now. You can have some personal items on that chair and like move the camera around so that what's on top of that chair or like a table right next to it would be a bit more visible. Yeah, because right now I can see that there's a chair, but it's almost getting lost because of the same color values that you've got, as Tim said.
Yep. Awesome. Let's have a look at another one. We actually looked at the two more recent ones, right? So I think we're probably just going to have a quick look at the other ones. When was this? 5 months ago?
Oh, that's a lot of work. Lots of modeling.
Yeah. Very tactical, though. In a good way, right?
Oh, yeah,
like,
it looks
what I'm
kind of
seeing
modular.
Here is, like, this shape is, like, very basic. But I don't mind, right? It's not a bad thing because we're not focusing on the shape anyway. Like, we're focusing on, like, all the nice, juicy details in the front.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Don't mind. This is something that I try to highlight, right? Like, if you're not gonna pull, like, focus or attention to it, like, you can easily just make it with, like, very primitive stuff. Rather than focusing on something that probably not worth spending, like, so much time on. Are those modular? Don't think so. I think he built it modular in like the modeling software, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one piece, most likely.
Yeah. There's definitely we're gonna go through this like a little bit quicker, but like there's definitely room for improvement in the topology. Some stuff is really dense, some stuff is really flat. Yeah, cool stuff though. I like seeing the progression. You know, the progression is really cool to see between pieces. And let's have a look here. We've got Old Town, small town in Malaysia. Oh, 3 months. When was this last one? Oh, okay. So this one is actually newer than the previous one. But I love that. You know why? Because this shows that the person that made this, so Daryl, knew that this one was worse than his newer piece. Well, like, his older piece was actually better than this piece was. Because there's more modeling detail in that one. So you can kind of see like how Daryl is like consciously structuring his portfolio, right? Like he's kind of building and tweaking his portfolio just to see like what gives him like the best representation, which is really cool. And that's great. Love to see that. We kind of just skimmed through that one. I want to have a quick look at the prop here. As
much as I like the previous environment, I don't think that has any place here, because it seems like you want to be an environment artist, and this, to me at least, it looks like you're like one of the first models that you might have done like following a tutorial. So yeah, and it's definitely not a representative of the quality of the work that you can have.
Yeah. I agree. Your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest piece, right? So this one has such a gap in quality. And I assume that the reason why you want to keep it on there is because it showcases that you can do like an actual unique asset. I would honestly just do like an asset that you use in an environment
Environment. Yeah.
and publish that as like a separate thing, or showcase it as like a proper breakdown in your environments as well. And then that replaces the need for having like a totally separate prop. I would honestly cut the prop. I would have like no bad feelings about that. And actually, I want to go as far as saying if you made a conscious decision of adding the old town, which is like more recent than the cathedral, but you're putting it at the back of the line, that showcases to me that you're not convinced about that piece, and probably is a good indication that it shouldn't be on your portfolio either. So I think you
Yeah,
could honestly cut those two.
And yeah, as Tim said, if you want to showcase some prop work, you're already doing that with your latest environments. I would just maybe go out of my way, like do some more props for the next environment perhaps. And if there's a lot of them, you could make a separate post like showcasing those props and having like proper breakdowns and give them enough space so that you can showcase, for example, the high poly perhaps if it's foliage, or like if it's with speed tree, showcase your workflow. And yeah, the textures as well, UVs, all those things that we've discussed. Because you can do the
100%.
work. So yeah, you don't need a single prop that's way out of style, and like it's such a big difference compared to the rest of your environment work.
Yep, 100%. So, our little recap. What would you say was number one?
Ooh.
It can be
I
in
wasn't
any
ready for
order,
this.
right? I think what did we talk about? Like breakdowns were definitely a thing. Like they could definitely be improved.
Yes, especially on the texture side of things.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Textures were a big thing. You're right. I think I'm gonna keep that as like a separate thing. I would honestly say focus on improving texturing first, because it feels like that is currently the thing that's kind of lacking behind in terms of the other skills. Like the cathedral showcase that you can model like quite intricate shapes and you know how to work your way around like an asset. But the texturing is what comes next, I feel. So focus on textures. The number 2 would then be like breakdown improvements, right? Like there's a lot of really quick wins that you can do there, as always. Breakdowns and optimize. I'm gonna add this here, and with optimize I mean your portfolio, right? Like just cut down like the two things that we talked about. Like I'm 100% sure that I don't want to see this on your portfolio, because it's so far out of reach in terms of like the quality bar that you set with your environments that this is like old work at this point. With this one, I would personally cut it, but this is a decision that you have to make for yourself. But I have the feeling, again, if it's already at the back of the line, I have the feeling that you wanted to do that yourself as well. So, yeah, I would potentially cut that too. And then, yeah, there's a lot. I think Angelo kind of gave like a brief glimpse at what you can do when it comes to the lighting and like the cloud textures and all that stuff. So maybe that's point 3 then. What do you think?
Yeah, lighting, grading, post-processing, perhaps that would be the more inclusive term. Like I don't think you're doing too much of it, and it leaves so much on the table, because like you've done all the hard work. You did the modeling, you did the materials, you did the trim sheets, the set dressing, the foliage, like tweaking the post-process volume and doing some color grading and applying some camera effects is like honestly the easy part. And I
Yep.
can already tell that you're able to do that because I can see, for example, with those 3 thumbnails, I can see the like volumetric fog, some god rays, some bloom, some lens glare. So it's good that you're already aware of those effects. So yeah, just spend some more time on them, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
that extra 10% to enhance your work.
Yeah. And I like the thumbnails, you know, like the cathedral. Like
Yeah.
we looked at the cathedral and it kind of is a cathedral by itself. But I like that you chose to take extra time to make that nice thumbnail where we're sitting on a balcony looking at the cathedral. Like it's a story, right? Again, this goes back to my earlier point where we are visual storytellers. If you can take me on a journey and I'm more interested in like exploring what you have to tell me by just showing me like a little thumbnail, like I'm all in, you know? At that point, like if the thumbnail pulls me in, I'm sold. So, yeah. Oh, great work. Especially the cadence of your work as well, right? You're
Oh yeah.
putting out like a lot on show. Keep up the momentum, and yeah, keep pushing yourself because this is going to be good. Any final thoughts before we move on, Angelo?
Just wanna reiterate on the first thing that we said. Like, just switch that game artist to environment artist, since that's the kind of
Yes.
work you're. Yeah.
Yeah.
You seem to be enjoying anyways. Like, you can still do modeling, you can still do texturing and all those things.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a small one, but it's an important one, I think. Just fully dedicate yourself to the stuff that you want to do. Okay. Moving on then. Let's see. Next one is Nastase. Oh, sorry if I mispronounced that. Nastase Alex. Ton of work on here. This is looking great. Like I like the banner. You know,
Oh
taking
yeah,
extra time
definitely.
to have like all your work there. Very very good and strong first impression. You know.
Nicely framed as well.
Yeah. Cool stuff on there. Let's see. Oh, maybe let's have a look at environment / prop artist. Okay. Okay. Experience with creating 3D models for game assets. Nice.
See, I can see some like right there with the first glance. I can see some environment backgrounds, but I don't see enough environments. So I think that would be like a big point of mine. Like the next thing I would like to see is like more environment specific work, because even though you have some environments, especially in the like for the latest assets on top, it still lacks as a background thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to focus on like showcasing some environment art skills, I would definitely like take a step back from the prop art and just do some more environment work basically. So showcase some set dressing, things like that, some lighting. But yeah, don't want to get into specifics. Do you wanna?
No.
You're
Let's dive in. I'm digging in because I think I fully agree. I was kind of just having a quick look through like the most recent projects to see what he was responsible for when it comes to the environments, right? But it definitely seems to me that the environments are in service of the props, right?
I mean, that's not necessarily bad.
Oh no,
But that's
no.
only if you want to be a prop artist, to call yourself a prop artist. If you want to do environment work, you need to showcase that too. So that's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm agreeing on too. Because like this is great, right? If let's say, for example, you would have done like everything here, then I would expect to see like the same sort of breakdowns for like the foliage and like the rocks and all that kind of stuff as well.
The materials.
Yeah. But this is definitely more focused on the props than the environments. I love presentation here. You see like a little bit of a wireframe. The green makes it a little bit hard to look at, right?
Yeah, maybe like cyan or like bright red, orange. Maybe that would be a bit more visible. But yeah, it really depends on the prop as well. So
Yeah, and I think also we were to look at it in like full screen, it's going to be a little bit better, right? Yeah, it's honestly,
yeah,
it's not too bad. So sculpt at the top and then decimated it down. That's cool. The rest is just like nice and quadrified, which is cool. Yeah, no, this is great.
yeah,
The main thing that immediately stands out here is how much empty space there is on the textures. Like that is honestly like the main thing that immediately stands out as like not a red flag, right? But like a warning.
yeah. With those
Like
kind of weapons. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's not uncommon that you can use like a 1:2 ratio for those textures, especially with guns and like swords. So like that you can still showcase a 4K texture, but you can showcase that the fact that you can still use like a 4K 4096 by 2048 texture and
Yep.
save up some space over there.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm also pretty confident that you can, if you pack stuff better, that you can, and maybe even symmetry like some areas, that you can pack this into like a single 4K, or maybe even go smaller. But that being said, the presentation here is pretty good, right? What I think is the only thing that's missing is just the body count. Right? We're not seeing any body count on here. And then I'm assuming that this is like 2 texture sets of 4K, right? Is that correct? Let me have a quick look here.
Yeah, looks like different UVs on top.
Or otherwise, there's something weird happening. Yeah. No, these are like separate. Yeah, maybe you are right. Maybe these are like different UVs. Because these UVs like don't match like the textures.
Yeah, maybe it's just a mistake.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like these are like what might have happened is that these are like nicer packed for like UV space, right? But then looking at like the texel density, maybe they were like, oh, I'm gonna have to resize like some of my UV islands, and then pack them again, and I gave them like this sort of pack. I don't know, something like that could have happened. But like this might be confusing when you showcase like a UV layout like this, and then the textures that are based on that UV layout, they're like completely different. Something to take into account.
Yeah. You don't want to confuse the person reviewing that, basically.
Exactly. But otherwise, lighting, I'm a sucker for these like museum type setups,
Oh,
right?
yes,
Where it's just like nice, clean studio lighting. Looks so good.
If I were to nitpick, I would still like some shadow casting. So like hide the shadow caster somewhere, depending on where you wanna like ground the asset. Yeah, instead of just having it super wide, but that still works. Like it's still very nicely presented. So,
or you know what you could do? You could have it floating in midair with like little like nylon strings, like it would be in like an actual museum, right?
Oh yes, that would be amazing.
That would be cool.
But yeah, and I love the initial render as well, like very nicely presented, like within a context of a scene.
This is the way that I've been advocating for, right? Like you want one render within the context, and then you want clean renders, and then you want a breakdown. Like the amount And like how you want to do that, you have full flexibility in. But I think this sequence works really well, where you have like the wow image, right, where it's in context, and you're like, dang, this looks good. And then you go to like the clean renders, and then go into the breakdowns. Very nicely structured. So yeah, I like this. Let's see. Okay, you pick one. Which one are we gonna look at?
Oh, I already went to the next one, the bike, because and it's
bike?
like very similarly presented in a very nice way. So
yeah,
I really like the environment work as well in this one. Because I can see it like in a slightly larger context, so it's not just the diorama and the axe. And yeah, if you scroll all the way down, you can see some nice UV work. I would still like to see some wireframe, not wireframe, like the poly count, because that's not super clear.
The texturing work is really well done, and like
the lighting no.
brings it out really nicely as well. Like it's
sorry, I went through that, but very quickly. No, yes, the overall presentation in the scene is like great.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, material like this as well.
Yeah, and then also indicating like, oh, the red IDs are like 2K, green is 4K, blue is 4K. Really nice, nicely laid out.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have much feedback for this because this is nicely made.
The only thing that I would do is these breakdowns, right? I would still like present them with like a little bit more context, maybe have like a bit of the environment behind it, and maybe you could like even blur it, right? So that it doesn't become distracting. And then don't pick like 90s neon green as like your UV color.
yeah, that's fair. White could easily work.
We're nitpicking at that point, right? Because the work, this is the thing, right? This is an example of show don't tell. Like this is purely visuals, like really selling the whole vibes, and then just a great way of like presenting like the amount of like textures used with like the ID map. Yep, pretty cool. Modeling and texturing done by me. Interesting. So does that mean that the lighting is not done by him?
Oh, I missed that point. Yeah, I would definitely love some clarity on that. Or like, maybe it's like the whole environment could also be like a template. So that would make me double think. Yeah, I just assumed that since they have an environment artist in their title.
Yeah.
Now that I see that like that train prop, it looks like a very similar environment to the bike.
Yeah, it does, right?
So it makes me think, is that perhaps a template, or like is it? It's fine if it's just Megascans and you did the dressing because it's still very nicely presented. Like the lighting is on point, like the set dressing and everything is great.
Yep.
But it makes me wonder. So
that's the thing. The only reason why it's relevant in my head is because he's also saying he's an environment / prop artist, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter, right? If Alex is like, look, I'm a prop artist, I don't really care about environments.
Well, go for it.
You know, like no issue. There's also like a couple of questions in the chat about this actually. So Chaotic Elite asks, can being a 3D prop artist be a career focus, or is it just a part of doing the environment artist role? No, it's like a completely separate specialization, especially in like again, AAA and like AA studios, like very focused, very specialized. And Hudson is asking, maybe this is one for you, Angelo. Should an environment artist also know lighting?
I'd say by itself it's a good thing to have, because like if you know lighting, you can present your work under the best light. That's a great pun.
Oh, we went so far.
And yeah, like basically, I don't want to have another like half an hour presentation about lighting, but like lighting in a scene can make or break your portfolio piece. So it never hurts to know a bit more about lighting. And at some point, you're gonna have to add a point light or a spotlight, you know. So might as well like learn a few things about it. You won't necessarily, especially in bigger studios, for example, as mine, they have specialized lighting artists, so environment artists won't be required to do any lighting work. But in like the smaller the studio, the bigger the chances that it's gonna fall into an environment artist's hands to do the lighting.
Yep, for sure. McFall is asking, are these dad jokes included with the stream, or will we have to pay extra? No, I think I'm paying extra for all these dad jokes. Like, oh my god. While you were chatting, I was quickly browsing through some of the other work from Alex, right? And now I've landed on the first piece on his portfolio, because I think we can both agree that like the work that Alex is presenting from very high quality. The only thing that we currently struggle with is, well, not struggle, but that we want to have like clarity on, or would be good for Alex to like get rid of, is the environment art part of his title, right? That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because he seems to be like really into props. I would honestly just say, Alex, just go full into props. Don't even worry about like applying for like environment art. Just keep doing what you're doing and keep leveling up those skills. Yeah, that's what I would say. And now,
Yeah, I'm also going through them real quick. I'm in love with the Arcane Vi gloves. Like it feels a bit boxy. So with a first glance, it's like the colorful gauntlet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has a certain stylization that I love. Like the more you look, the closer you look.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how it's presented, like within the context of like you have the pedestal and you have like a nice matching HDRI background from the looks of it. It's probably taken from the actual series. So yeah, that's some nice contextual presentation.
Yep.
Might be a bit more. Well. Oh, nice. Wait, did Arcane get released 2 years ago? Oh no, I'm feeling old now.
No. We're not gonna talk about that subject. Yeah, but I think most of this stuff is from around 2 years ago. Oh, interesting. So I think he's definitely doing the lighting, right? I think maybe.
Oh yeah.
I would assume so on the latest ones as well. He's not saying it specifically, but I think he's also doing like the lighting, or maybe it comes into a template, right? But like even the ones that don't come in a template, like this one, for example,
is still very
like,
good. Like,
yeah, very nicely presented. The modeling is on point. Presentation really interesting here. This is a cool presentation. Because like the thing that I like about presentations, and especially breakdowns, is when they actually complement the work, right? Like there's attention paid to the font that's been chosen, and like the style of presentation, and like everything meshes together. Because what you have in a lot of cases, and like this is super normal to happen, especially in the beginning, right? Because using a correct font and all that kind of stuff can be like its own kind of journey. But usually you have the disconnect where people have this like nice image, and then you go into the breakdown and it's like, it's Arial or
Comic Sans.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's definitely nice to see the progression of like how much effort you throw into the like breakdowns. If I were to nitpick on that last piece, maybe I would like some more like close-up wireframe shots because they're not super readable. I tried to view it in full screen mode, and it was a bit low res. But the model itself, it's very nice and clean. The lighting is immaculate.
Yep.
And super good presentation.
This is interesting because it feels like it's not really game art, right? Like, it can be used in games for sure, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it would be applicable to like a lot of studios, apart from like, let's say like if they want you to work on the cars from Forza Horizon, something like that, right? Like very specific, like high render quality, like almost like hyper realistic games, like and I wonder if that is something that Alex is aiming for, because if he's going for that, like I feel like he's making like really nice progress, but in chasing that he's also gonna alienate like a lot of other studios that would have different styles, and it's no issue, right? But it's like a conscious choice if you're doing that or not.
Oh yeah, it depends what you are aiming for, basically. And another like major thing that we probably missed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of those things are rendered in Blender. I don't think I'm seeing Unreal in the software that was used.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be I only just realized. So I would definitely make an active effort to like do the same kind of setup that you have, just try to do it in Unreal, just so you can showcase that you know how to use a game engine.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm currently going through them like really quick, right? Because I kind of want to see if there's like anything in there. Yeah. I mean, look, also honestly, it's a great point that you bring that up, right? And I think it should still be something that Alex could work on. But also, if your work is at this quality bar where you know what you're doing with lighting, and you know what you're doing with that, I think it's relatively, well, maybe lighting not so much, because we're going from like cycles to like a real-time engine, right? So maybe that's where like a lot of the growing pains are going to come in, because now you could technically have everything look as crazy as you want, and you just wait like a couple of hours for that one image to render out. But once you have to translate that into like at least 60 frames a second, that's going to be very interesting.
For portfolio work, I wouldn't worry too much about, because nowadays you can just use path tracing as well, even in Unreal. So
that's true.
You could probably translate most of those skills that you already have inside Unreal fairly quickly. But that still requires some work and like lots of learning. I'm not gonna say that it's super easy to just transition from Blender to Unreal.
Oh no, it's easy.
5 minutes.
Okay, I'm ready to do a little recap. So what are we thinking? I'll start this one off. I think, okay, the biggest one for me, right, the one that we talked about, was environment art.
Yeah, question mark.
Environment art, but without environments, right? And if you made those like environments yourself, I would love to see breakdowns or anything done on that. Because if you did, that would be like super impressive. And honestly, just putting that on your portfolio that you also did those environments too would like drastically increase your chances of getting hired, for sure. Because it makes you like infinitely more versatile. So that would be like my number one. What would be like your one you want to bring up?
Just going through lots of them at the moment, I would say like come up with a consistent breakdown template, because for example the car has a different very cool breakdown by itself, but like the axe has a different one, and it has those like small mistakes with the UVs which confused us in the beginning. Like the order props do not have any breakdown whatsoever, like the first, like the axe and the sword and the shield.
Yep.
So yeah.
Very cool. So consistency in breakdowns and adding breakdowns whenever they're missing, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, makes sense. And then the third one that we kind of talked about together as well was game art, right? Like, especially the engine part of it. Like, that was a thing that was missing, because the wireframes and like the textures that we saw could be used in game engines, right? It's just
Oh,
the
definitely.
presentation wasn't done in a game engine, so that would be like an additional plus to have that in your portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be something crazy. You could, like, if you want to go the environment arts route, you could also just have an game environment. So that would be a good talking point to persuade the interviewer that you know how to use a game engine. So you can still do the props in Blender and like render at the highest quality, but also showcase that you can do game environment work.
Yep. 100%. No, like overall, I'm like really impressed by like the realistic nature of like the textures and the modeling, like the presentation of everything as well, like how everything kind of blends together. Feels really nice at this point. So this is one of those portfolios that I'm interested in to like look at in like 6 months to see like what they've done, because I feel like they kind of developed like their own thing and they're kind of just going for it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, awesome
Honestly,
to
just
see.
excited to see. Yeah, exactly. Okay, one question from Alice Davies, and Bulborb already answered it partially, so thank you so much, Bulborb. What does an environment art role entail in AAA studios if not working on specialized props? So, usually, and this is like a generalization, right? But if you want to be sure about what your responsibilities are going to be for like an open application, always look at the application itself, because environment art, like environment artist, is like the catch-all term for like a lot of stuff that you will probably be doing. But in general, it's highly likely that you'll be doing like a lot of world building, which means building locations together with level designers, like set dressing them up, like actually making sure that the art of the space comes together. That's usually what you'll be responsible for. And I'm trying to keep it like very generalized, because sometimes that means that you'll be making props. Other times it will be that you'll be outsourcing props and you'll just be implementing. Same for the textures. It varies from studio to studio.
Oh, and one minor thing I want to add. They also have to be playable, so that's a very important factor. So like collisions, for most of the times, like it's something that you don't really do when you're doing portfolio work, but like chat with like probably gonna be in constant communication with level designers to like check if all the collisions are fine, optimization as well, like
Metrics.
LOD, things like that. Yeah, metrics, like draw calls, how many materials those assets will be able to have. But yeah, like
Yeah.
the more you dive in, yeah, we can have like 1,000,000,000, yeah, small like jobs for
For
that.
sure. It's interesting to shed a light on it, because I don't think a lot of people realize that like collisions and like metrics and like all those other things are like a very important part of it, right? And also like sometimes it goes like really granular, like Angelo was saying, where if you're working on like an open world game that has like a lot of destructibility in it, what you have to take into account is how you stack certain assets. Because, for example, what happens is you have like a wooden. Okay, so you have a wooden pallet with like a bunch of like barrels on it. What happens if I shoot that wooden barrel, like the wooden crate underneath the barrels? Because sometimes if they're tied together, if they're like one asset, then they might react, right? But what also happens in a lot of cases is that I shoot the wooden pallet, that disintegrates into a particle effect, and now we're stuck with like 4 floating barrels on top of it.
Yeah, and like sometimes, for example, you're gonna have to make it like a small variation of that crate that's destroyed, or like only the bottom part is left. Oh, and then yeah, but to getting to to the details though.
Oh yeah. This is the
Yeah.
nerdy stuff. Bulwarp is adding the way that I understand the hiring process. It also really depends on what the studio needs at the moment. Yep, 100%. Like
yeah.
that's why I said in the beginning to look at like the application of the actual opening, because a lot of that stuff will be in the actual application. Like it might be called environment artist, but then once you start breaking apart, like, oh, you'll be using ZBrush and you'll be sculpting a lot. Like that's not what I just said, right? That's going to be like a specific
Yeah.
branch of it. So yeah, I know in the long term, like if you're just starting out, like just focus on props first, and then like Angelo said, props first, make a little diorama, infuse a little bit of storytelling into it, and then go broader if you want to do that. Okay. We have one more, and we're a little bit over time, but that's all good. So this is one that Angelo brought with him because Angelo said that in the beginning, I think, that you opened up a form.
Yes, and I had some applications, so we'll see how this goes. I might have to do it like on my own, like the rest of the not candidate, the rest of the submissions, or yeah, we might cover them in a future episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of them. So it's good to have a look.
Let's do it. Okay, I think for this one we had some additional context, right?
Oh right, yeah. Do you have it handy, or should I open it up?
I think it's yeah. But yeah, in the meantime, while you bring that up, like the first impression here, really, really interesting, right? Because I've seen this work already, and that's the time I spend online these days looking at other people's work is like very small. So like the times that I do see things is usually the times when like this stuff floats up to the surface, right? But yeah, just the banner image and like this latest piece here looks really gorgeous already.
Oh yeah.
So
I already saw it, somewhere, and it was immediately caught my eye. So yeah, I got it. I got some extra context. So Marco is looking for junior lighting position in games. He has some experience back from 2022. It was a startup, but the company had to do some layoffs, so unfortunately he was affected. He has done a CGMA course in the meantime, and yeah, he loves to creating realistic lighting. But yeah, also having the creative freedom to like push the mood and the emotion. And he gave me some examples like Alan Wake, the new one. Yeah, Naughty Dog. I think those are the studios. Yeah, the Dream Studios. So like Naughty Dog, Ubisoft, CD Projekt Red, Rockstar.
the big ones.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, no, that's so basically, yeah, Marco is aiming for like the AAA company. So yeah, that's good context to have. And yeah, he's asking whether, if he's lacking on like something with his current PCs. So maybe we can, give him some extra insight on what we would like to see. And yeah, he is asking if he's employable, good enough to find a job with the current portfolio.
Yeah. Awesome. So this is going to be very interesting for me because I'm going to let you run the show a little bit. Because I've never really done a portfolio that's specific for lighting art, right? And I don't know what lighting artists would look at in general. So
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And like he already mentioned some stuff, for example, values, contrast, composition, color. And if we go through, do we start from the first scenes, the first ones, like with the characters?
Sure. Oh, the first one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of backwards. Okay, so like that one is 7 months ago, and it's a real light scene from Extraction. Is that a game? I'm not not really
it's a movie,
sure, but
right?
Oh right,
because
yeah,
they have
yeah.
like movie scenes in it as well.
Oh right,
so...
yeah. That's Chris Hemsworth, yeah. Okay, yeah, straight up, that's great to see, and like I think like Marco did a like perfect job recreating the mood of that scenario. So like I really don't have much to comment on it. Like it's insanely close,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's something that's like very nice to showcase, because in many situations as a lighting artist you'd be asked to basically follow like a concept art or like a brief to the pixel. So it's great to see that you can like color pick the values and like adjust the localized like shot lighting to yeah. Oh wow,
What
yeah,
are,
I saw that.
what are we thinking about this door? That's something that just focusing on like the focal point, right? Like it feels like the comparison, like the door like takes up is a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit distracting in the background.
it's shocking. Yeah, that's a very good point that I missed. Yes, in Unreal you could use a fairly new plugin that's like color range volumes, something like that. Color
Oh, the color correction
color
volume.
range region. Yeah, color correction regions. Actually, I think that's
Yeah,
how it's
yeah, yeah,
called.
yeah. A friend of mine
So
showed me
yeah,
that, and I was like, "Shit, that's awesome."
oh, it's so useful. Yes, and like that's super useful for, even for environment artists, because, for example, you can use it to put emphasis on your like the focal point and then slightly darken or desaturate the rest of the environment. And if I recall correctly, we also used that in our like team challenge. And
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, in a very minor way, but it still contributed a lot to the final result. So yeah, you could use that one to basically isolate that door and like darken it back to match the movie reference. But yeah, that's a very good point.
It's cool though, like this.
So we get to the next one. That's
Let's
like a
do it.
bit more advanced, yeah. Okay, so that's one of the assignments for the CGMA course. Okay, so that's basically you got an environment and you're following like a loose reference of of a scene from the boys. I think like from a first glance, seeing the movie reference, like the values and the colors are not exactly there. Like in the movie, I can see like some very distinct yellows and much more contrast in the overall scene. So like you have less visibility and clarity in the environment, but yeah, the characters are the focal point here. And yeah, unfortunately, you don't have those in the like game environment. So I know that's a limitation that you have to work around. But yeah, maybe I would. Honestly, at that point, I might have like gone out of my way to like change the environment a bit and make it a bit more enclosed, just so like tweak around some meshes, lower the ceiling perhaps, get some more like volumetric fog, because that's a big aspect of the movie reference.
Yeah.
Like the atmosphere in there feels very dense, and you can see that the fog really picks up very quickly, even though it's just an interior space, which doesn't make sense necessarily. But I guess they did it for like dramatic reasons in the series.
Yeah, what also strikes me in the comparison is that the stark contrast between like the blue and the orange, right? In like all the frames.
Yeah,
And that's sort of missing here, right? Like it's very orange or like, well, yellowish. Just mainly. But there's no contrast.
A lot softer basically compared to the reference. And like you got one nice, like the first shot, we can see the like some blue colors, some nice contrast in there, but I think that red light is distracting because you don't really have a red light in the reference, so it wouldn't make sense that there is a red light over there. Maybe like you could change the hue to make it yellow. Maybe that would work. Because you already have some yellows on the left side. So at that, yeah, for that shot, you basically have three major colors conflicting with each other. So
Yeah, that's true. And like, it's also like taking a lot of attention because it's moving, right? Like, it's
oh
gonna
yeah,
pull like
definitely.
extra attention to itself, where you kind of just want to see this, right? Like, this should be like the focal point.
Yeah, I
So, and
like.
having that guy come in and like we're not seeing like any of the front because like the flashlights are coming from the back. Like, it's a cool image.
And I would also consider like lowering the intensity of that yellow light on the left. So because
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily your focal point, as you said, like the guy with the two guns storming in front of the door is the like main focal point. So yeah, just focus on that.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, this is actually an interesting one, right? Because you brought up like lowering the ceiling and like adding more clutter to the space. It's actually interesting that like lighting and environment art go so hand in hand, right? Where like we
Definitely.
need to riff off of each other like a lot, where if you have ideas or you want to go for a specific mood, then especially in like a workspace environment, right? You then have to approach me, let's say in this case, and be like, hey, can we do something where we make it like more claustrophobic or like more cozy or whatever, and then I can work my magic because I have this vision for it. I can already imagine those like conversations happening, and that's the stuff that's really exciting, honestly.
Oh yeah, and it's yeah, good point that you mentioned that, because as a lighting artist, you're probably gonna be working with environment artists most of the time. Like I'd say 80 to 90% of the time. So it's good to like also have, same as we said before, as an environment artist, it's good to that you know some lighting art. It's equally important for a lighting artist to know how to manipulate some basic environments and like yeah, have those important conversations with the environment art team.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, so we go to the next one.
Next one.
It's good that yeah, it's just for PC, so we can spend some more time with it. Yeah, I think the next one is a lot closer to the movie reference. I like how like all of those lighting scenes, lighting studies basically have some solid reference that you try to imitate. I haven't seen the I haven't had a like close look to the like your latest one, but like till now we've had 3 lighting studies and all of them have been based on like a movie frame or like a series frame. One thing I would like to see is like some more initiative. So like try your own thing. So like you already made like a great job with this one, for example. I can immediately tell that it's very close to the reference that you have. So one thing that you could like do as an extra step is just try your own lighting scenario. Yeah, I think the only like the main feedback point I would have for this one is again that random orange light that isn't really matching with what we have on the reference.
Yeah.
Like I can kind of get behind like the thinking process of why you added that. Like it's an extra point of interest. But yeah, I would try that in like an extra lighting scenario that you could perhaps play around with the values by yourself and the colors to give it like a distinct look and not follow like a movie shot.
Yeah. It's very interesting, right? Because I think about it in like a very environment art way. And I feel like a lot of the stuff is pointing towards this, right? This is where we want to be looking. So then adding like a
Yes.
light here is just like distracting. So
Yeah,
I would
conflict.
probably try to put something in here, maybe like a very like low orange light to kind of like invite you in, but you're not sure what's happening. Maybe it's blinking and we see like a shadow flickering of like a guy working in there or something, right? Something implied. Yeah, like it feels it like you were also saying that you would love to see like more artistic input, right? Like your own voice through your work.
Oh
And
yeah,
you have to
exactly.
be like really specific in like specific with it, right? Because you can't add just like, oh, I'm gonna add like this stuff here, because now we created something where we're creating like conflicting focal points, right? We're trying to focus on two things rather than just focusing on one thing. Yeah, interesting to think about it in like very environment art ways, even though we're talking about lighting specifically now. This is interesting.
Yeah, no, it definitely comes to show that you need both.
Yeah, this is cool. Okay,
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
one. Or
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
yes. Oh, this is cool.
Nice.
I
Okay,
didn't see the
see, yeah.
multiple lighting scenarios. Yeah, it's awesome.
Although I'm having trouble seeing the difference between like the last two. Oh wait, no, something's wrong with my art station. Let me refresh.
Between the
Oh
last
no.
two.
No, I mean like, is it the same photos or?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, these ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
they seem to be stitched together, just
Yeah.
going back and forth. I mean, yeah, by themselves, yeah, the first two are amazing. I love the half lighting like slash sunset that you've got. The main like conflicting thing is like how bright your sky is compared to how low the sun appears to be. Like I would expect in a late evening scenario that the clouds, the sky would be a lot more saturated, less blue, and the clouds themselves would have like some different colors. So like some warmer tones and like perhaps some purple, like pinkish ones, depending on where on Earth that place is.
Yeah.
Because the atmosphere definitely reacts differently. But yeah, like the colors are working very nicely with each other. Have like a nice mixture of like very warm lighting and also like some cool shadowed areas and like some very soft shadows in the foreground. The composition itself is working very nicely. So yeah, don't really apart from from that inconsistency with the sky color, I don't have anything else on the bottom one, the top one. And when it comes to the bottom one, I think it's like a nice overcast setup. I'm not entirely sure if it's a night scenario though, or like just overcast because it's very misty. If let me actually put it in full screen just so I can have a closer look.
It feels like the movie The Mist. You know, like it's middle of the day, but it's like so misty, and we don't really know what's crawling out there. You know, kind of what it feels like.
I can see some like some soft shadows in the building itself, so there still is a sun from what I can tell, but it's very faint.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's very subtle, but I think it works very nicely. I would perhaps try pushing the like coldness of the scene a bit more, so like the blues. But that's really like a personal thing, so I wouldn't go crazy. Like we can have a discussion about those things, and at the end of the day, lighting is very subjective. So I think the lighting setups you got already work very well with themselves, and it's great, as I said, to see that you're taking the initiative and you're doing your own lighting studies. So like you didn't follow any specific movie reference for these ones. So and to answer your question, I think like it's a very strong portfolio. So what do you think, Tim? Well, I ponder a bit more.
This is about a question whether like he's ready to get into, right?
Employable, yeah. Like for a junior position, I think
this is interesting, right? Because I think employable has more to do with like you applying yourself than I mean, someone calling you employable doesn't really matter, right? Because I think
Oh yeah,
people with like less skill and like less stuff on their portfolio still have gotten jobs somewhere. So I would definitely say like you would definitely like employable in my opinion. Um yeah.
yeah. I would say the same. It's just a matter of like being the right person at the right time. For example, I don't see any stylized work, so like maybe it would be worth to like diversify a bit more, like find some stylized scene, and like you could try lighting that as well, just so you can showcase that you can work with in a stylized setting. Because yeah, 3 out of 4 of them is based on a movie or series reference, and yeah, the other one is still like a super realistic scene.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really depends. I mean, I know that you want to work in like Naughty Dog, Ubisoft, CD Projekt Red, Rockstar. All those are super realistic, so that's probably fine. Like you don't necessarily need to do some. Yeah, you don't really need to have stylized lighting work, but yeah, just
Yeah.
keep at it, and it's just a matter of being there at the right time, and yeah, finding the right opportunity
Yeah. Yeah.
to do
Keep
it.
applying, keep working. I would also say if like Ubisoft is one of the studios that you're looking for, right? Like look at the games that like have the most interesting lighting to you and then do your own spin on that. Like for example, like one game that immediately comes to me because it has such a striking lighting setup was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like they had really
Right.
moody, like very art directed lighting, which was like super interesting. So I would honestly try to do like something like that, just as like an experiment, right? And then see if you can find like different ways of interpreting that and maybe putting your own spin on it. Um, yeah, yeah. I think it goes in line with what you were saying as well, right? Like try to be more, um, yeah, more self-driven and like try to take like artistic risks and like go out there a little bit more. And like really try to find like what what makes you tick, right? In terms of like what means lighting art to you, really. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome work. Yeah.
Great work. Best of luck, Marco. Best of luck in the hiring hunt. And I think yeah, we're a little bit over time as well. But yeah, anything that you want to add to Marco before we kind of round this session off?
Uh I mean, nothing really that hasn't been said. Yeah, like really like every like piece of them of him. So, oh, that
Yeah.
sounded yeah. So, I
Every
think
art
yeah,
piece.
yeah. I think my brain stopped working. It's been a couple of hours,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's like
No, okay.
yeah.
I'll say best of luck, Marco. Thanks also for like applying to like the forum that Angelo has posted up as well. I know that this is kind of like a mix, right? Because you were probably expecting Angelo to do this by himself, but yeah, here we are.
No, I think yeah, it's the extra feedback is always appreciated. So like
Yeah,
that way we get some extra perspective from like an environment arts as well. So yeah, it's great to see.
yeah. All right. Yeah, I think honestly that's what the game is all about, right? Like working in games and also like self-development and all that stuff. It's just collaboration between people, especially when you're going into lighting art. You're going to be talking to like a lot of different disciplines. You're going to be like working with them a lot and a lot of back and forth. Yeah, game development is very, very tightly knit together. And you're going to see that. I mean, you already have like a bit of, well, in your case, you already have like a bit of professional experience, right, Marco? So for you, it's going to make total sense. But yeah, that was it. We got 4 portfolios done. And they were all great. So thank you so much all for sharing your work with us. We're gonna be here like next month again with the both of us probably. And me and Angelo are probably gonna are going to have more talks in the meantime, because we do, like I said in the beginning, we do have some plans on how we want to approach this in the future. We'll let you know as soon as we know more as well. So, Angelo, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming on board as well.
Thanks for having me. It's been so fun.
Yeah, it was really fun, man. Okay, and thank you so much all for being here in the chat as well. Thanks for being here live. And then, yeah, you'll see us next month again. And yeah, maybe something else will happen in the meantime. But yeah, stay up to date with us here. Yeah, Angelo, go ahead.
Oh, no, I need to update to get some more dad jokes.
Oh,
I'm afraid I'm gonna run out of them very quickly.
Yeah, you kept yourself in check. I appreciate it, man. All right, people, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
See ya.